I've been meaning to write and to share about Lebanon for months, and I have not, until now, known how. Lebanon is layers upon layers of history, in a very literal sense. Passing through Sidon, en route to Beirut, I once saw an excavation site on the side of the road, where, beneath an apartment building, revealed by the removal of its parking lot, stood structures no younger than a millennium. My partner took me to the Al-Bas necropolis, one of several sites of ancient ruins in Tyre. The official layers, the ones tourists come to see, reach back into the past all the way to the Canaanites, Phoenicians, for whom the space was 3,300 years ago, a cemetery and a crematorium. Their grave markers lie next to those of subsequent eras, those of the Greek period, the Roman period, and the Byzantine. You can see, even, where the road of the Greeks is extended by that of the Romans. There's a vomitorium, there is a hippodrome. But those are not the only layers. For that history in this space was buried and forgotten, becoming a swamp, and later housed, beginning in the 1930s, first Armenians seeking refuge from genocide at the hands of the Turks, and later Palestinians, for whom it served the same function, until when in 1957 history was discovered lurking beneath their tents, the Elbas refugee camp was wedged over. What you are looking at is the other, oft unmentioned layer, coming between modern genocide and antiquity. Before the growth of European imperialism inflicted itself, brutalized, displaced, and fragmented the people of the Levant, and before the fall of the Ottomans found the Turks presaging the same towards Armenians, one could ride by rail from Istanbul to Aleppo, to Tripoli, to Beirut, to Tyre, crossing on the rails you see here, over the swamp and on through to Palestine. From Tyre to Haifa, from Haifa to Gaza, to Sinai, to Cairo, and if one wished, as far as Sudan.
I'll show you something interesting. Also, if you look at the sign ahead of us, the green one says Palestine. If you continue driving straight, you reach Palestine. But it's like the promised Palestine. You can't actually reach it, because there are borders. But one day, in the past, one time long ago, you were able to just drive to Palestine and you would just go straight and you would end up there.
The hope of these people, known since 1917 by the nationalities they were divided into by European colonialists, Syrian, Jordanian, Lebanese, Palestinian, was for unity, connection, to be able to travel to each other in their own pocket of the world as freely and easily as Europeans do today, to cherish what made them unique, and to cherish what they shared. But that hope, like that railroad, was brought devastatingly to a screeching halt with the consummation of the Zionist colonial dream. There were to be no more trains running from Istanbul to Beirut to Gaza to Cairo. And from the time that train was halted, never again to steam easily on its way, the swamp of 3,300-year death then blissfully undisturbed, bodies have steadily amassed, bones of the past, martyrs of today. And for the last 76 years, El Bus, now pushed to the margins of the excavated site, has housed those who fled from those southern railway stops, their children, their grandchildren, still holding the keys to their own past, waiting, praying, longing to one day be able to go home again, to be, as they are, Palestinians. Everywhere you look in the land of Lebanon, there is history, beauty, culture, glory, and pride, stretching back thousands of years. And yet, within the distinct country of Lebanon, political system shaped by France for maximal sectarian dysfunction, setting the stage for its 15-year civil war, borders set with the UK for maximal colonial control, dismembering the region that had been known since 661 AD as Bilad al-Sham. You can't turn your head without seeing evidence of decay, destruction, displacement, poverty, and strife, the course to which was cemented in 1948. The Lebanese have, since that date, housed the refugees driven from Palestine and stood, on the whole, in absolute solidarity with them, home to the headquarters for the Palestine Liberation Organization, and archivally preserving the historical records of the Palestinian people, until those archives were bombed by Israel in its 1982 siege of Beirut. Yet never, unlike so many of the Arab states, have the Lebanese abandoned their Palestinian siblings. For the past 76 years, they have stood with them, no matter the cost, and upheld as incontrovertible the Palestinian right to once again be able to return to the land that is theirs, and in it to determine their own political destiny. And Lebanon has paid incalculably for their resolve in so doing. They, like Palestine, have all this time been the recipient of Israeli brutality, dehumanizing propaganda, imperialist ire, and have been treated to invasions, massacres, occupations, destabilization, crippling sanctions, and economic isolation. The IDF's Dahiya doctrine of establishing deterrence by exerting catastrophic violence against general populations and sweepingly obliterating civilian infrastructure, which we have seen since October fully unloaded onto Gaza, draws its name from its initial 2006 site of implementation, the Dahiya district of Beirut. In the present, the resistance in Lebanon has maintained that its activity against military sites in northern Israel will continue as long as does Israel and the United States' genocidal campaign in Gaza. Israel and the U.S. seek to portray this activity as distinct from that campaign, as hate-fueled terrorism, when it is one of the only actual exertions of pressure on Israel to stop slaughtering Palestinians. The more virulent quadrant of Israelis actively supports a full invasion. Much of the pro-settler contingent wishes for an occupation and the establishment of settlements within its southern borders. The people of Lebanon, like those of Palestine, deserve your attention, deserve your support, deserve your voice. They, more than anyone else in the world, and at the highest cost to themselves, hold the greatest solidarity with Palestinians, the liberation of whom would similarly mean their own liberation from the continual sacrifices of comfort, of national development, of economic prosperity, of thousands upon thousands of their very lives, all of which they endure as the cost of true solidarity. Yesterday, in the countless videos of explosions from Israel's terrorist attack on Lebanon, there is one of men, women, a young girl, shopping for fruit, sweeping the floor, in a location that looked very familiar to me. There is an outdoor market by the sea, at the harbor, where my partner took me in Tyre. One I have walked through, one at which I have shopped for fruit, photographed a flight of seagulls, where I've pet the cats. The soles of my boots had worn too far down, and so she had brought me to the old Palestinian cobbler who ran his business there out of a market stall. She and I can seem an odd pair in Lebanon, especially in the south, which invited his curiosity. This man, who masterfully restored my boots for no more than a couple dollars, who has lived his entire life barred from his home in an exile principally supported by mine, beamed upon learning my nationality, and, fervent, he insisted she translate to me that, regardless of the actions of my government, or how they affected him, his host country, his people, his home, that regardless, for me he had nothing but love. The government is not the people, he said. He was certain. People everywhere are good.